In the distant parts of the Orion Spur, the mining ship Tabek floated among asteroids. Its crew, mostly made up of members from the Galactic Coalition, worked to extract valuable minerals. Captain Minji stood on the bridge, watching her team's progress through the main view screen. "Captain, our sensors are picking up something strange," said Officer Juno, his eyes fixed on the scanner. "It's big. Very big." Minji moved closer to look at his screen. "An asteroid." "No." Chunho shook his head. "It's artificial. And it's giving off a faint power signature." The Tabek changed course, moving toward the mysterious object. As they approached, the crew fell silent. What they saw through their viewports seemed impossible. A massive ship, easily 20 times larger than their mining vessel, drifted silently in space. Its dark hull was marked with strange symbols and what appeared to be battle damage from long ago. "That's human writing," said Engineer Kyung, pointing to markings visible on the hull. "But humans don't build ships like this. They never have." The Galactic Coalition had 17 member species. Humans were among them, but they were considered a developing race with modest technology. Their ships were small, practical vessels for trade and transport between their few colonies. Nothing like this behemoth from another time. Captain Minji sent an urgent message to Coalition headquarters. Within hours, the diplomatic vessel Harmony arrived, carrying Commander Taiho of the Altarian Diplomatic Corps. Taiho, with his characteristic blue skin and 4 eyes, was known for handling sensitive first contact situations. "This discovery must be handled carefully," Taiho told Minji as they stood together on the Tabek's observation deck. "If this truly is advanced human technology, it changes everything we understand about their species." Coalition scanners mapped the dormant vessel. It stretched nearly 3 kilometers from bow to stern, with what appeared to be weapon emplacements along its hull. The largest Coalition battleships barely reached 1 kilometer in length. "We found a name," reported a technician. "It's called Unanswered. Our databases have no record of such a vessel in any human fleet." Taiho assembled a boarding team of 20 specialists from different Coalition species. They wore protective suits as they approached in shuttles, uncertain what they might find inside this ghost ship. Minji insisted on joining them, her curiosity outweighing caution. The boarding team entered through what appeared to be a damaged hangar bay. Inside, they found rows of smaller craft, fighters and transport vessels, unlike any current human designs. Everything was covered in a fine layer of dust. "The air is breathable," said Hanel, the team's environmental specialist, checking his instruments. "But it's old. Very old." The team moved deeper into the ship. The corridors were built for human proportions, forcing some of the taller Coalition members to duck. Emergency lights flickered on as they passed, suggesting automated systems were still functioning at a basic level. "This ship has been dormant for centuries," Minji said, running her hand along a wall panel. "But it's waking up because we're here." In what appeared to be the main bridge, the team found computer terminals starting to activate on their own. Screens lit up with unfamiliar symbols and diagrams. Suddenly, a loud hum resonated through the ship as more systems came online. "We should leave," said Taiho nervously. "We don't know what we're activating." "Wait," said Jinwoo, the team's technology expert. "I think I can access some of the ship's logs." After connecting his translation device to a terminal, Jinwoo managed to display videos and documents on the main screen. The team watched in stunned silence as images showed Earth, but not the Earth they knew. This Earth had massive orbital structures, fleets of ships similar to the HFY, and technology far beyond current human capabilities. According to these logs, Jinwoo said, his voice trembling, this ship was launched 478 years ago, just before something called the scattering. That appears to be when humans fled Earth due to some catastrophe. The logs revealed more shocking information. The HFY wasn't just a warship, it was a supercarrier designed to preserve human civilization. It carried seeds, DNA samples, cultural artifacts, and advanced technology, all meant to help humanity rebuild if Earth was lost. This contradicts everything we know about human history, said Tahoe. Their historical records show they developed spaceflight only 2 centuries ago and have always been a minor power. Either their records are wrong, Minji replied, or someone wanted to hide the truth. As they explored further, they found sealed chambers with what appeared to be cryogenic pods. Inside each pod was a human, perfectly preserved in suspended animation. "They're alive," gasped Sunny, the medical officer. "Hundreds of them." Suddenly, all the ship's lights came on at full power. A holographic figure appeared in the center of the bridge, a woman in what appeared to be a military uniform. "Unauthorized access detected," the figure announced. "Initiating security protocols. Crew revival sequence beginning." Tahoe stepped forward. "We mean no harm. We are representatives of the Galactic Coalition." The hologram paused, as if processing this information. "Galactic Coalition is not recognized in database. Please identify your species and authority." Before Tahoe could answer, the ship's engines began to power up. The entire vessel trembled. "We need to report this immediately," Tahoe said urgently. "If this vessel is fully operational, it possesses technology that could upset the balance of power throughout Coalition space." As they rushed back to their shuttle, they passed more cryopods beginning their awakening cycles. Through the frosted glass of one pod, Minji saw the eyes of a human woman flutter open. Their gazes met briefly before Minji hurried on. Back aboard the Harmony, Tahoe sent an encrypted message to the Coalition Security Council. "Have discovered ancient human supercarrier with advanced technology. Crew in cryostasis now awakening. Technology level suggests humans once possessed capabilities far beyond current assessment. Request immediate diplomatic and military presence. This discovery will change our understanding of humanity's place in the galaxy." As the message was sent, the Ion Finite's massive engines glowed brighter. The ancient vessel, a relic of humanity's forgotten golden age, was coming fully awake after centuries of slumber. And the Galactic Coalition was not prepared for what would happen next. Within hours of the discovery, the Coalition deployed its finest scientific minds to the ancient human vessel. Research ships surrounded the Ion Finite, and specialists from 17 species worked in rotating shifts. They set up temporary labs throughout the accessible sections of the supercarrier, eager to unlock its secrets. Dr. Hunke, the Coalition's leading expert on human technology, led the main research team. He moved carefully through the ship's corridors, his eyes wide with wonder behind his protective mask. "The engineering principles here are unlike anything in our records," he told his assistant as they examined a power conduit. "These systems are centuries ahead of what humans currently use." The Coalition team worked cautiously, scanning each system before attempting to interface with it. They managed to access some basic diagnostic programs and historical data, but found that deeper systems remained locked behind security protocols they couldn't break. "We need to try a more direct approach," suggested Engineer Do-Yun, connecting a Coalition codebreaker to what appeared to be a main terminal. "If we can bypass these firewalls, we might." He never finished his sentence. The moment the Coalition device attempted to force access to the ship's core systems, alarms blared throughout the vessel. Lights that had been dimmed for centuries suddenly blazed at full intensity. Emergency bulkheads sealed, trapping research teams in different sections of the ship. On the bridge, a holographic figure appeared, a woman in ancient military uniform, her expression stern and watchful. "Security breach detected," she announced, her voice echoing through the ship's communication systems. "Initiating HFY defense protocols. Beginning emergency crew revival." The Coalition scientists watched in alarm as the ship's systems activated around them. Power readings spiked dramatically across all decks. "What's happening?" demanded Commander Seojin, who had been appointed to oversee the research operation. Dr. Hunke checked his scanner. "The ship's AI has activated. It's called HFY, apparently. And it's waking the crew." Throughout the massive vessel, hundreds of cryopods began their revival sequences, first in the command section, where the ship's officers were stored, then expanding outward through the crew quarters. Machinery that had waited patiently for centuries hummed to life, preparing to revive humans who had slept through the ages. In the captain's quarters, a single pod completed its cycle first. The transparent cover slid open with a soft hiss, and white mist spilled onto the floor. Inside, a woman with short black hair opened her eyes slowly. She coughed, her body remembering how to breathe on its own. Captain Juwu sat up slowly, her muscles stiff from centuries of inactivity. A medical robot approached, offering a cup of water and running a scanner over her vital signs. "Captain," said the holographic woman who had appeared beside the bed, "I am ATGENA. The HFY has been discovered by unknown entities. I have initiated emergency revival protocols as per Contingency 7. Juwu's mind raced to catch up. Her last memories came rushing back. Earth burning, the desperate launch of the preservation fleet, the final order to activate cryosleep until they reached the colony world or were somehow found. "How long?" she asked, her voice raspy from disuse. 478 years, 3 months, and 17 days since cryosleep was initiated, Athena replied. Juwu closed her eyes for a moment, absorbing the shock. Nearly 5 centuries. Everyone she had known on Earth was long dead. The world she had left behind was likely transformed beyond recognition, if it still existed at all. "The entities who found us, who are they?" she asked. "They identify themselves as the Galactic Coalition, 17 species in a political and military alliance. Humans appear to be minor members. They are currently attempting to access our systems without authorization." Juwu stood shakily, accepting the uniform that another robot brought her. "Wake my command staff, and give me a situation report on Coalition presence aboard my ship." Within an hour, Juwu had assembled enough of her senior officers to grasp their situation. The HFY had been found by chance, and the Coalition clearly had no idea of its significance or capabilities. More concerning was what ATGENA had discovered while scanning Coalition communications. Humans in this era were considered a developing species with limited technology, a far cry from the interstellar power they had been before the scattering. "Something went very wrong after we left," said Executive Officer Minho, reviewing historical data. "It's like humanity lost everything and had to start over. Or someone wanted it to look that way," added Security Chief Soyoung, her expression grim. Juwu made her decision. "It's time to make contact. Have the Coalition representatives brought to the diplomatic room." Commander Seojin and Dr. Hyunki were escorted by 2 newly awakened human security officers. They entered a large room with a circular table and were shocked to see a dozen humans in unfamiliar uniforms waiting for them. Juwu stood at the head of the table. "I am Captain Juwu of the United Nations Space Command Vessel HFY. You are aboard my ship without proper authorization, but I understand you meant no harm. You couldn't have known what you were dealing with." Seojin struggled to maintain his composure. "Captain, I am Commander Seojin of the Galactic Coalition. We had no idea this vessel contained a living crew." "Clearly," Juwu replied with a thin smile. "Your scientists have been quite busy trying to break into our systems." Dr. Hyunki stepped forward. "Captain, your vessel represents technology far beyond what humans currently possess. The historical records show nothing of ships like this." "That's troubling news, Doctor. Before the scattering, humanity had hundreds of vessels, like the HFY. We were one of the dominant spacefaring civilizations in this sector." Juwu's gaze hardened. "What exactly happened to my people after we left?" The Coalition representatives exchanged uncomfortable glances. According to official histories, Seojin explained carefully, humans achieved spaceflight only about 2 centuries ago. They have a handful of colony worlds and are considered a protected developing species within the Coalition. Juwu laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Protected? Humanity commanded fleets that could cross the galaxy. The HFY isn't even our largest class of vessel. This ship was built as an ark, carrying the seeds of human civilization. Knowledge, technology, genetic samples, cultural treasures. We were sent out as humanity's insurance policy. She activated a holographic display showing Earth as it had been. A planet surrounded by massive orbital stations and shipyards, with fleets of vessels similar to the HFY. This vessel contains technology that was meant to be humanity's ark. She informed the startled coalition representatives. We carried the seeds of our civilization's rebirth. While this meeting took place, an emergency session of the Coalition Security Council had convened. High-ranking officials from all 17 member species gathered to discuss the implications of the Infinity's discovery. "This vessel contradicts everything we thought we knew about humans," said Fleet Admiral Jiang, displaying sensor readings of the Supercarrier. "And our preliminary analysis of its weapons systems suggests it could challenge several of our fleets combined." The council chamber erupted in concerned voices. "If there are more of these ships out there," began one counselor, "then the balance of power in the galaxy could shift overnight," finished another. As the council debated, more of the Infinity's crew continued to awaken, each one confronting the same shocking reality. They had slept for nearly 5 centuries, and the powerful human civilization they had served had somehow been reduced to a footnote in galactic politics. Captain Zhu stood on her bridge, watching coalition ships maintaining their position around the HFY. Her command staff worked at their stations, reactivating systems that had slumbered for centuries. The ship was coming alive around them, and with it, the forgotten legacy of a human civilization that the galaxy had either forgotten or deliberately erased from history. News of the human supercarrier spread like wildfire across coalition space. On thousands of worlds, beings of all species gathered around screens, watching reports about the massive ancient vessel and its newly awakened crew. Information networks buzzed with speculation and fear. Security markets plummeted as investors worried about what this discovery meant for galactic stability. On the coalition capital world of Nexus Prime, the 17 High Counselors met in emergency session for the 3rd straight day. Their circular chamber, normally a model of calm deliberation, had become a scene of shouting and table pounding. "This vessel must be surrendered to coalition authority immediately," thundered High Counselor Junxiu of the Maverian Empire, his scaled skin flushing dark purple with anger. "We cannot allow such destructive potential to remain in the hands of a single species, especially one with so little standing." High Counselor Yuna of the Trull Republic, representing one of the smaller coalition members, leaned forward. "Perhaps we should consider what this means for our understanding of human history. If they once possessed this level of technology, something significant must have happened to cause such a decline." "All the more reason to secure the vessel," Junxiu replied. "If humans once posed a threat great enough that someone found it necessary to reduce them to their current state, we should be extremely cautious." The debate raged on while, across coalition space, different species reacted according to their own interests. The 7 dominant powers saw the HFY as a threat to their control. The middle-tier species remained cautious, waiting to see how events would unfold. But the smallest coalition members, those who had often chafed under the dominance of the larger powers, saw potential opportunity in an alliance with these newly discovered humans who possessed such advanced technology. Meanwhile, aboard the HFY, Captain Zhu walked through the ship's vast hydroponics bay, where automated systems had maintained plants and food crops throughout the centuries of dormancy. Over 300 crew members had now been revived, less than a tenth of the ship's full complement, but enough to begin operating essential systems. Executive Officer Minho approached her with a data tablet. "Captain, we've been monitoring coalition communications. Their leadership is divided on how to respond to us, but the dominant species are pushing for us to surrender the ship." Zhu nodded, unsurprised. "And what about current humans? Have we made contact with any of the colonies?" "Yes, Captain. Coalition authorities initially tried to prevent it, but once word got out, we've received dozens of transmissions from human settlements. They're shocked by our existence. According to what we've pieced together, modern humans believe their ancestors achieved spaceflight only 2 centuries ago. The history of Earth before that time is fragmentary at best. Jiwoo clenched her jaw. Someone rewrote our history. The question is who and why. A young officer hurried toward them. Captain, a coalition diplomatic vessel is requesting permission to dock. They say they're bringing an ambassador to negotiate. Let them come, Jiwoo replied. It's time we understood our place in this new galaxy. The coalition ship that docked in the Infinity's massive hangar bay was sleek and elegant, bearing the 17-star emblem of the Galactic Coalition. From it emerged Ambassador Dongyun, a human who had risen to prominence within coalition diplomatic circles. His ornate robes marked his status, and he was accompanied by aides from various coalition species. Jiwoo received him in the ship's conference room, where historical displays showed Earth as it had been before the scattering, a center of human achievement and power. Captain Jiwoo. Dongyun began with a formal bow. I bring greetings from the Galactic Coalition Security Council. I am authorized to discuss the status of your vessel and crew within Coalition space. Ambassador, Jiwoo replied coolly. I'm interested to hear how a human came to represent the very organization that apparently keeps humanity as a protected species. Dongyun smiled diplomatically. Captain, you must understand that the Coalition has been essential to human development after we rebuilt our civilization. The protection and guidance of more advanced species has allowed us to establish colonies on 7 worlds. We've flourished under this arrangement. Have we? Jiwoo activated a holographic display showing data from the Infinity's historical archives. Images of massive human space stations, terraforming projects, and fleets of ships appeared. Before what we called the scattering, humanity had settled over 200 worlds. We had ships that could cross from one side of the galaxy to the other. The Infinity's was just one of many arcs sent out to preserve our civilization when Earth faced destruction. Ambassador Dongyun's carefully maintained composure faltered. These records can't be accurate. Our histories show that humans never achieved such capabilities. Your histories are wrong, Ambassador, or they were deliberately falsified. Jiwoo leaned forward. The Coalition Security Council has demanded we surrender this vessel for safekeeping. My answer is no. The Infinity belongs to humanity. We were sent to preserve our civilization's achievements, not surrender them. Dongyun's expression hardened slightly. Captain, please understand your position. You are a single vessel in space controlled by 17 advanced civilizations. The Council has been patient, but they insist this technology be placed under proper supervision. Jiwoo laughed bitterly. Protection. Supervision. Humanity once commanded fleets that crossed galaxies. This ship is but one of many that were dispatched before the fall. Captain, Dongyun said, his voice dropping to a near whisper, I'm trying to help you. The dominant coalition powers won't allow this vessel to remain independent. They're already positioning military forces in this sector under the guise of security concerns. Please consider a compromise before this escalates. Before Jiwoo could respond, an officer burst into the room. Captain, we've got incoming vessels, dozens of them, from the direction of the human colonies. On the bridge, Jiwoo watched as the tactical display showed a flotilla of small ships approaching the Infinity. They were a mismatched collection of transport vessels, scientific ships, and trader craft. Nothing military, but many more than expected. They're transmitting on all frequencies, Captain, reported Communications Officer Yuna. They're representatives from human colonies. They're requesting permission to come aboard. Granted, Jiwoo ordered. And keep an eye on those coalition warships that Ambassador Dongyun pretended not to know about. The Infinity's massive hangars soon filled with shuttles from human colonies spread across coalition space. The people who emerged stared in wonder at the vast interior of the Supercarrier. Many wept openly. touching the walls and structures of the vessel with reverence. Governor Jaehyun of New Terra, the largest human colony, approached Captain Ju with tears in his eyes. "Captain, we thought this ship was just a legend. In our fragmented histories, the INFI was mentioned as a vessel of salvation, but most scholars dismissed it as myth." "Not a myth, Governor. And we have complete historical records of Earth and human civilization before the scattering." The governor's face showed both joy and shock. "Captain, you don't understand what this means to us. For generations, we've been told that humans have always been a minor species, that we needed coalition guidance to develop. Our own past has been a mystery to us. As human colonists mingled with the Infinity's crew, sharing stories and discovering their connected history, Ambassador Dongyun watched from a distance, his expression troubled. He touched a small communicator on his wrist. "The situation is complex," he murmured into the device. "These humans from the past are reconnecting with the colonists. Their historical records could completely reshape humanity's understanding of their place in the galaxy." The voice that replied was cold. "Then those records must not spread. The Council has authorized increased security measures. You have 24 hours to convince them to surrender the vessel before we take action." Outside the Infinity, more coalition warships appeared in formation. Their weapons remained powered down, but their message was clear. The political firestorm sparked by the ancient Supercarrier was about to become a military confrontation, with the future of humanity hanging in the balance. Captain Ju stood on the bridge of the Infinity, watching the tactical display with growing concern. Over the past 12 hours, coalition warships had arrived in increasing numbers. They now formed a ring around the ancient human vessel, their positions clearly designed to prevent any attempt to leave the area. 37 warships now, Captain, reported Tactical Officer Minsu. They represent all 7 major coalition powers: heavy cruisers, destroyers, and at least 3 dreadnoughts. Chu's expression remained calm, but her eyes hardened. Behind her, representatives from the human colonies watched nervously. They had refused to depart despite the growing military presence, standing in solidarity with their newly discovered ancestors. "They're trying to intimidate us," said Governor Jaehyun of New Terra. "The coalition has never deployed this many capital ships for a security operation before." A communication alert sounded. "Incoming transmission from the coalition flagship, Captain," said Communications Officer Yuna. On the main screen appeared Admiral Taewoo of the Mavarian Empire, his scaled face set in stern lines. "Captain Ju, the Coalition Security Council has declared the Infinity a potential threat to galactic security. You are ordered to power down all systems and prepare for boarding. Your crew will be treated with respect, but this vessel must be placed under coalition control." Whispers of alarm spread among the human colonists on the bridge. Ju merely tilted her head slightly. "Admiral," she replied calmly, "this vessel belongs to humanity. It contains our history, our technology, and our heritage. We will not surrender it." The Admiral's expression darkened. "You have 1 hour to comply, or we will be forced to take action. This vessel is surrounded. There is no possibility of escape." As the transmission ended, Executive Officer Minho approached Ju. "Captain, even with our advanced technology, we can't fight off the entire coalition fleet. Most of our offensive systems are still in standby mode after centuries of dormancy." "I'm aware, Minho." Ju turned to the ship's AI interface. "Athena, what defensive systems can we bring online immediately without risk of malfunction?" The holographic figure of Athena appeared. "Shield systems are at 87% capacity. Point defense grid is fully operational. The Taurus electromagnetic pulse array can be activated with minimal risk." "Good." Ju nodded decisively. "It's time we showed them exactly what they're dealing with. But we won't harm their crews." For the next 40 minutes, the Infinity hummed with activity as crew members prepared for what was coming. In the ship's massive engine room, Engineer Sunwoo carefully brought power systems to full capacity for the first time in centuries. Taurus array charged and ready, Captain, he reported over the comm. Whenever you give the word. On the bridge, Juwu addressed the anxious human colonists. What you're about to witness may shock you. The technology on this vessel represents what humanity once was, and what we can be again. I suggest you hold on to something. As the Coalition's 1-hour deadline approached, the warships tightened their formation. Weapon systems powered up across their fleet, targeting locks engaging on the Infinity's hull. Admiral Taewoo's face appeared on the screen again. Your time has expired, Captain. Will you comply? Juwu stood tall, her voice steady. No, Admiral. But before you fire on this vessel, I think a demonstration is in order. You should understand what you're facing. Before the Admiral could respond, Juwu nodded to Tactical Officer Minsu. Activate the Taurus array. Low power, non-damaging pulse. Minsu pressed his hand to a glowing panel. Taurus array activated. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then a shimmering wave of blue energy expanded outward from the HFY and HFY in all directions. As it passed through each Coalition warship, their lights flickered and died. Weapon systems deactivated. Propulsion failed. The mighty vessels drifted helplessly in space, their crews scrambling to restore power. By the Creator's light, whispered Governor Jae-yun, his eyes wide. What did you just do to them? A targeted electromagnetic pulse, Juwu explained. It temporarily disabled their systems without harming anyone aboard. They'll have emergency life support, but weapons, engines, and communications will be offline for about 30 minutes. Juwu activated a channel that broadcast to all vessels in the area, including civilian ships watching from a distance. Attention Coalition forces. As you have just experienced, the Infinity possesses defensive capabilities far beyond your current technology. We could have fired our main weapons. Instead, we merely disabled your targeting systems and propulsion. This ship was built to fight enemies you cannot imagine. She paused to let her words sink in. I invite the Security Council to send representatives for peaceful discussions. But understand this. The Infinity will not be seized, and humanity will no longer accept its position as a protected species when our true heritage has been hidden from us. Within hours, the demonstration had been transmitted across Coalition space. On thousands of worlds, beings watched in awe as a single ancient human vessel disabled a fleet of the Coalition's most powerful warships without firing a shot. On the Trell homeworld, High Counselor Yuma met with her advisors. The balance of power has shifted, she said gravely. If the humans possess more vessels like this. Impossible, said General Dongo. Our intelligence would have found them. Would it? Yuma questioned. We didn't even know the Infinity existed until now. And clearly, someone went to great lengths to erase humanity's true history. Similar conversations occurred across the Coalition. The 7 dominant powers, which had always controlled Coalition policy, suddenly found their positions less secure. Smaller species began to question the established order. If humans had been deliberately kept ignorant of their heritage, what other secrets might the dominant powers be hiding? 3 days after the demonstration, Captain Juwu held a historic gathering aboard the Infinity. Representatives from all 17 Coalition species attended, along with leaders from every human colony. The massive conference room was filled to capacity as Juwu activated a holographic display. Today, we share with you the truth about humanity's past, she announced. These records were preserved aboard the Infinity as part of our mission to safeguard our civilization's knowledge. The display showed images that stunned the audience. Earth surrounded by massive orbital structures, artificial worlds built at Lagrange points, fleets of vessels larger than the Infinity, terraforming technology that could transform dead worlds into garden planets in decades instead of centuries. These were not the accomplishments of a species that should be under anyone's protection, Juwu said firmly. Humanity was a founding member of the First Galactic Concord, a peaceful alliance that predates your coalition by centuries. The coalition representatives watched in silence, many recording everything to share with their governments. The implications were enormous. Humanity had not always been a minor player but a major galactic power. Their decline had either been natural, the result of some catastrophic war, or deliberately engineered. As the presentation concluded, Ambassador Namjoon of the Solari Confederation, one of the 7 dominant powers, approached Juwu. "Captain, in light of this information, my government wishes to withdraw from the coalition's military operation against your vessel. We believe diplomatic relations would be more appropriate." Over the next few days, other powers followed suit. The coalition blockade thinned as ships departed, their governments unwilling to risk conflict with the technological marvel the HFY represented. The power dynamics that had governed the Galactic Coalition for centuries began to fracture as member species reconsidered their positions regarding humans. On the HFY's observation deck, Juwu stood with Governor Jae-yun, watching coalition vessels depart. "This is just the beginning," she said quietly. "The real challenge will be helping humanity reclaim its heritage without repeating the mistakes that led to the scattering." Jae-yun nodded thoughtfully. "And discovering who rewrote our history, and why they wanted us to forget what we once were." 6 months after the HFY's emergence shocked the galaxy, the ancient vessel floated majestically in orbit around New Terra, the largest human colony world. The ship had become the center of a remarkable transformation in human society. What had once been a collection of scattered colonies with limited technology was rapidly evolving into a unified civilization, reclaiming its forgotten heritage. Captain Juwu walked through New Terra's capital city alongside Governor Jae-yun. People stopped and stared as they passed, some bowing respectfully, others calling out thanks. Children ran alongside them, fascinated by Juwu's antique uniform. "The progress has been amazing," said Jae-yun, gesturing toward a new research center where scientists from the HFY worked alongside colonial engineers. "In just 6 months, our technology has advanced decades." Juwu nodded, watching as a prototype shuttle based on HFY designs rose smoothly into the sky. "Knowledge is the easy part. Building a society that won't repeat our mistakes, that's the challenge." After the demonstration that had disabled the coalition fleet, Juwu had made a surprising decision. Rather than isolating humanity or seeking revenge for centuries of suppression, she had extended an olive branch to the coalition species. The HFY had traveled to each human colony world, sharing technology, historical records, and cultural archives preserved from old Earth. The reunion had sparked a renaissance in human society across coalition space. Agricultural yields tripled with the application of techniques from Earth's golden age. Medical technology advanced rapidly, extending lifespans and curing diseases that had plagued colonists for generations. Education systems were transformed as the complete history of humanity became available for the first time in centuries. In a spacious meeting room aboard the HFY, representatives from all 17 coalition species gathered around a large oval table. This was the 14th such meeting in 3 months, as a new relationship between humanity and the coalition took shape. Ambassador Minjin, newly appointed to represent United Human Interests, addressed the assembly. "The draft charter before you proposes full membership for humanity in the Galactic Coalition, with equal standing to founding members." Several coalition representatives nodded approval, but others looked uncomfortable. High Counselor Junseo of the Mavarian Empire leaned forward. "While we acknowledge humanity's historical achievements," he said carefully, "there remains concern about the rapid reintroduction of advanced technology. The weapons systems aboard the HFY alone could destabilize regional security." Captain Juwu, seated beside Ambassador Minjin, replied calmly, "Which is why the charter includes strict limitations on military applications. We're not interested in dominance, Counselor. We've seen where that path leads." Later that evening, Juwu stood on the HFY's observation deck with Chief Engineer Sunwoo, watching shuttles come and go from the ship. Below them, New Terra glowed with lights as night fell across its largest continent. The propulsion systems on the colony ships are almost back to 22nd century standards, Sunwoo reported. Not quite what we had before the scattering, but light years ahead of what they were using 6 months ago. Juwoo nodded, her expression thoughtful. Have we received any responses to the deep space signals? Not yet, Captain. If any other arcs survive, they could be anywhere in the galaxy by now. The HFY had begun broadcasting on frequencies used by the ancient human fleet, hoping to contact other vessels like itself. Historical records indicated that at least 12 such ships had been launched before Earth's fall, each carrying different aspects of human knowledge and technology. The HFY had specialized in military and engineering science. Others had focused on agriculture, medicine, arts, or exploration technology. 3 weeks later, representatives from all human colonies and the 17 coalition species gathered in the HFY's massive hangar bay for a historic ceremony. The space had been transformed with flags and symbols from every world present. At the center stood a large table where the new charter would be signed. Captain Juwoo, dressed in her formal uniform, addressed the assembly. 5 centuries ago, humanity faced extinction. We launched the arcs to preserve what we had built over thousands of years, not just our technology, but our art, our knowledge, our very identity as a species. Today, we reclaim that heritage. She gestured to the colonial and coalition representatives. But we do so with wisdom born of bitter experience. We remember the wars that nearly extinguished us. We have no desire to repeat those mistakes. But we will never again allow humanity to be considered less than we are. The signing proceeded with representatives from each world applying their signature or mark to the charter. When completed, the document established humanity as a full member of the Galactic Coalition, with equal standing to founding members. It also created a new Council of Historical Truth, tasked with investigating how and why humanity's history had been altered. In the months that followed, the HFY became more than just a vessel. It transformed into humanity's embassy, university, and training center. Human crews learned to operate ships based on their ancestors' designs. Colonial engineers studied the technical archives, adapting ancient technology to modern needs. Cultural experts pored over records of Earth's diverse civilizations, reclaiming traditions thought lost forever. Yet Juwoo remained troubled by unanswered questions. Who had rewritten human history? Why had knowledge of humanity's advanced past been systematically erased? The investigation proceeded slowly, with fragmentary evidence suggesting a deliberate campaign spanning centuries to keep humans unaware of their heritage. 1 year after the HFY's discovery, Juwoo met with the ship's senior staff in her private quarters. The mood was somber as Intelligence Officer Hannah presented her findings. We've analyzed coalition historical archives from 17 worlds, Hannah explained, displaying a holographic timeline. Approximately 50 years after the scattering, references to advanced human civilization begin to disappear from official records. By 100 years post-scattering, humans are consistently described as a primitive species only beginning to explore their solar system. Someone systematically erased us from history, said Executive Officer Minho. But why? Fear, most likely, Juwoo replied. We were powerful, perhaps too powerful. Communications Officer Yuna entered hurriedly, her expression excited. Captain, we've received a signal. It's faint, but it's definitely using our old encryption protocols. The room fell silent as Yuna played the message. Through static and distortion came a voice. This is the UNSC Prometheus, responding to HFY signal. We have maintained our mission for 473 years. Request confirmation of Earth's status. Juwoo closed her eyes briefly, emotions washing over her face. Another arc had survived. Humanity's rebirth was just beginning. Far beyond the borders of coalition space, in a region unmapped by any known civilization, ancient monitoring systems registered the Infinity's reactivation. Deep within a massive structure floating in the void between stars, dormant systems awakened. Data streamed through circuits unused for centuries as the Infinity's location and status were confirmed. A message propagated outward to other hidden installations. Preservation Protocol Alpha successful. Human resurrection phase initiated. Proceed to Contingency Omega. Across the vast distances of unexplored space, more systems awakened, ensuring that the reemergence of the INFI and ITY was merely the beginning of humanity's return to the stars.